Good morning. Today, our topic for this harp session is Beyond the Spark, sitting with the uncertainty of committing to a research topic. I'm joined by Dr. Nasharil Nazrin Ramli, a researcher at the University of Manchester. Congratulations, you passed your Viva not long ago.
Thank you.
Well, thank you first of all for coming to the podcast and doing this with us. Um, I'm very interested to know about the spark of your research topic and how you sat with that probably uncertainty
Yeah.
that you experience committing to it. Do you want to share your story?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me today, Nahielly. I thought this is a perfect time for me to talk about how it all began. Actually, and I'm going to focus specifically on how I arrived to this park. I thought it was really interesting, and just thinking about it now that I just literally finished my PhD, which can't wrap my head around it. Actually, you're done. Actually, isn't it?
Yes, it's a journey,
Your journey
and you're
is
done.
you're done. Well, I know it's a long way ahead, but at least one chapter is close and time to open up a new one. I'm going to. I know this is the end of my journey, but it's good to reflect back on how it all began. At this perfect time. Thank you for having me, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it, and then we can take it from there. So to arrive to this park, I think I would have to retrospectively go back to how I arrived. I mean, like how it all began in sense, and I want to talk a little bit about myself,
Yes.
because that for me it plays a major role in how I in choosing the topic, in how that topic kind of like becomes significant to my life and consequently my research, something I'm interested in. So my name is Sharil. I am a Malaysian. So I was born in one of the ruralist area in Malaysia. It is a small state in Malaysia actually, up north bordering Thailand.
Oh.
So my mom actually migrated from Thailand, but not the southern of Thailand, which is bordering Malaysia, but the north of Thailand, from Chiang Mai to Malaysia, and then yeah, all the way, and then she married my father, and then the rest is like family history as they call it. So I grew up in a working class family in a rural area in the north of Malaysia. So that in itself says a lot to it hints a lot towards the kind of challenges that I will face as a student, as a learner in Malaysian education system, for example. So that's a little bit about it. Fast forward, I am at the now. I am a teacher. I teach. I've been teaching for nearly 12 years now. So I'm on a 3 year break, good break, and then funded by the Ministry of Education Malaysia itself to pursue my PhD. And I just finished it. So I will go back to teaching in secondary school, across Malaysia. Before it all happened, so when I first started my teaching career, so I went back to my hometown. I thought it was really empowering, being from a rural area, teaching my rural students, teaching the students that I could relate to in a context that I grew up, learning how to navigate. I enjoy it. I spent the rest of my life in born, raised, and everything happened in the area. And I thought for 2 years there, it was some of the best experience I had. After 2 years, I was transferred to another school because the way that Malaysian system work, it's centralized. So the Minister of Education, they have the ultimate power to decide where teachers should go. In some sense, it's good because they manage um, which school needs teacher, which school currently has um, enough teacher or more teachers than they should. So I was moved to a different state, and this is like a 180-degree of change actually. So from a rural school to a school that is located in a rather urban area with elite students,
Wow.
um, top 10 best performing school in the country in terms of attainment, elite school in terms of like they have royalty there.
Wow.
The current prime minister is from that school, was studied in that school before. So it's a complete change, isn't it?
Yes.
So this is where I arrived to this park actually. Um, I experienced a different way of teaching. I thought at some point I was like, oh, this is a big change for even for me. To adapt myself as somebody who grew up in a rural area, who went to school in a different context, to a different context, and I observe firsthand um, the difference, isn't it? And I teach English in Malaysia. I am an English teacher, so I will go back to teach English as well. So there's a big difference in how English is taught in the rural area and in the urban area. But
What would be the main differences?
I mean, like in terms of the students' exposure to English itself, I mean, I know this is deficit, but to think that well, English is part of their life already. I remember like they started to reproduce or use vocabulary or languages that is not normally used among Malaysian themselves. And if you ask them, how did you learn all this word? And oh, we read a lot, teacher. We watch a lot of Netflix and all that stuff. And then that's interesting, isn't it? But it's a different way of that of teaching there and in the rural area. There's something going on, and I started to make assumption, just from what I observed. Oh, in rural area we don't have any English at all. English is difficult to be taught there because no one is valuing English, etc. etc. In my research, current research, I address that as a form of deficit, which in itself impede my ability to teach as well, the way that I view them, and that's basically my research. But the whole idea, the spark actually starts from here. But I couldn't make sense of what is happening. I know that there exists a form of, I mean, some sort of difference, but and experiences to learning English. But I couldn't explain it or articulate it in the manner that I would want to. Uh, and then I went on and I did my master's in one of the local universities in the country. And this is when I was introduced to Bourdieu, but not as a subject, not even as a unit, but as a mere mention in one of the units. I think it is called educational development or something. It was very a small part of that course, and I thought this is interesting. Bourdieu talks about capital, and that becomes the major spark. So I began to view it differently. So I was like, so this is sociology of education, which is unheard of in Malaysia. Nobody is exposed to sociology of education. I was really interested in this idea of capital, as Bourdieu would say. A capital is power, and it becomes resource, and it depends on the resources in terms of economic power, capital, in terms of social capital, cultural capital. So I know a lot of people may not be aware of what Bourdieu is, or have read Bourdieu before. In the simplest way of explaining what capital is and how I managed to relate to my practices as a teacher back then, was the idea as simply as cultural capital, for example, and as I observed in the new school, for example, parents do read to the children, and they don't only read, but they read in English language, for example. Some don't read to their children, but they themselves read, and then the students observe that
And repeat what
and
the
repeat
parents are doing.
exactly. And then they have them. I would use in the simplest manner of saying although I hate saying this, but they have the money. They are able to invest, and they are willing to invest not only in education but buying things that will contribute later to learning, for example.
Technology.
Technology, exactly. English book, even like internet access and all those stuff. If you compare to the rural area, they are working class. A lot of them are from the working class family, so they're busy with trying to earn, and then they have to leave their home and come back later on. They don't really pick up that reading, for example. So Bourdieu would argue that these are all form of capital that contribute to language learning or to learning. This is a very simple manner of explaining just to get the audience to understand what this is. So I thought this is really interesting, and of course it is more complicated than that. But this is where it begins. Bourdieu, sociology of education, and trying to understand what is really happening. And from there, then this is the spark, and I want to learn more about this. But this is also it also becomes a challenge for me. So understanding that I'm teaching in Malaysia, and Malaysia is the academic or the academia there. It's more of a positivist and functionalist way of doing stuff and research. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong. It's just one way of doing it, and understanding how Malaysia as a post-colonial, multi-ethnic, multicultural country, we struggle with a lot of stuff. So we're still we're not there yet, but at some point, but we're doing very well in terms of education as well at the moment. But we have our own way of doing, and unfortunately, sociology of education is unheard of. And I tried to pitch this idea to a lot of the academics there, and they were like, apologies, Sharil, but this is way beyond us. To understand, I was like, to understand inequity in learning English, for example, in the country, I think maybe we should take a step back. And I know the country or everybody is pushing towards, AI, technology, and etc. etc. Uh, but you can see that there's a disparity between the rural and urban area that I'm trying to challenge over here. I know that we are ready for development, technology, or in learning, for example, but who has the access to that? And let's just take it from there. And then, well, this is a really good idea, but unfortunately, we aren't able to help you. And that is why I went to the ministry, pitched the idea, and overcome the challenge by just let me just talk to them, and they listened. And then that's why I'm here in Manchester at the moment, which I'm leaving very, very soon. But that's where it all started, I would say. Yeah.
So when you leave Malaysia to come to Manchester and start your PhD journey, how did things change? That spark that you had, some ideas to explore, you get here. When does this become that uncertainty to commit to this specific topic?
Yeah. So the moment that I arrived in the UK, everything changed. Um, I mean, a lot of people I think would have talked about how they struggle with adapting to the life in Manchester itself, because literally you're taken out of your comfort zone, from your context, from to a different city, way of doing, way of being. So I think a lot of people would have already talked about that, and I acknowledge it, and it's true. But also understanding that, in terms of academic, the way that I learned, the way that I teach, the way that I was taught, the way that I did, stuff in terms of academic, even during my masters, they were useful. But now that I'm in the University of Manchester, we move towards more of a critical research. Previously I talked about in Malaysia the way that we do things are more towards a positivist, post-positivist, functionalist way. But it is over here that I have to challenge my own assumption about how things work, my own bias, for example, and those become a really difficult challenge for me, and they become like some sort of a gatekeeping, a gatekeeper to the way that I move forward. So, because I remember I had to take a step back and just sit down and how do I challenge this deficit assumption that I have about my own students in the rural area and the urban area. So in terms of academic, I struggle a lot as well, and I couldn't help but compare myself to my colleagues, those who did their masters here, and they were educated here in a sense that so this is how we're doing. We are doing things over here, and they kind of like follow along, but I'm still not there yet. So it took me a bit of time. I think the smallest aspect could also be in terms of how I read and how I understand the kind of material that I read. So I had, in a sense that I had to start over. But I enjoy the journey. I enjoy it. So it's what I'm here for in the first place, like challenging all that. And I thought it was a really good experience as well. So yeah.
Yeah. So when you start adapting to this new academic culture, then it kind of sounds like you're still experiencing this capital, this
Yeah.
idea of capital,
Yeah.
of differences, of
True.
economic power and relationships. So you're still, living that, those big concepts that Bourdieu talks about, and the linguistic capital, and
Yeah.
all
True.
these ideas. So it kind of is still with you, that idea to
Yeah.
explore.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But those becomes your a learning point, turning point as well. Um, I think I arrive here knowing a little bit about Bourdieu, but it is here that I further develop that, and it's really useful. But one of them is also challenging the power that I already have as well. I think in my research I talk about the idea of being insider, outsider. Insider in terms of I know about my research, I know I have my own capital, and they contributed towards how I view stuff. They could be deficit, they could be good or bad, and also outsider means that I'm going back to my field, to my research, in a sense that I'm now a new person in terms of I'm attached myself to the University of Manchester, but I'm coming home to generate data, talk to people, by bringing another form of power. So that's different. So I'm carrying this different capital, and I don't want to exert this power towards my participant later on as well. So when you talk about capital, when Bourdieu would argue there's no such thing as positive negative capital. It's how the field values and what is valued within it as well. So yes, that's how I navigate it.
Symbolic capital, isn't
Exactly
it?
what is symbolic
Yes.
within the
Yeah.
field. Yeah.
Yeah. So once you start your project, was there anything that became more like a struggle for you? And how did you overcome those struggles to then to be
Yeah.
able to,
Uh-huh.
collect your data and then write up your report?
Yeah. Oh gosh, a lot actually. And I could bulk them because it was just a lot actually. I would say that obviously I talk about the academic challenge to it. Um, but probably now is also the time to go back to more of a personal stuff that I experience as well. I talk about how it's difficult to challenge my own assumption of how education, academic world is like because I was educated in a different way. So that contributes towards how I write as well, because and how I write, how I think, understanding that I'm also a second language speaker. So it's difficult reading, in a different English as a first written in a first language as a second language speaker. I struggle there as well. But on a more personal side, I think nobody has talked about how lonely it can feel sometimes being in a different city away from your family as well. I think I overcome that with making myself available, meeting new people. I thought one of the best part about the journey itself is just the friends. They do not only challenge you academically, you can discuss with them, in your PhD work. But also it's interesting you relate to them to the kind of the same challenges that they face. So it's both the balance between personal and also professional as well as the academic side. So there are different ways of that I navigate it, but definitely just making myself available as well, and just accepting people, around me, for the work as well. Yeah.
Yeah, networking is important.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
a type of
Yeah.
networking. And it's
Yeah.
more difficult as you get older.
Mm.
When I'm just speaking from my experience
Yeah.
to connect and make true
I
friends, because
know.
usually we already have those,
Yeah.
and they're counted,
Yeah. Yeah.
But then being in a different place and
Yeah.
trying to connect with
True.
people, and to have a
Mm-hmm.
really something that keeps you going
Yeah.
whenever there's a struggle
Yeah.
in there.
I remember, yes, yes, like 2 days ago, I was sending a reel on Instagram to a friend, and the reel said that uh, it's unfortunate that my friend, these friends in the UK, for example, in the reel say they don't know how funny I am in my own mother tongue. Because when you're speaking a second language, automatically you're a different person.
Yes.
And I want to I'm actually very funny in my mother tongue, but it doesn't come across in the second language, isn't it?
It
I
doesn't
would,
translate the same.
yeah, no, it doesn't, isn't it?
Yes.
So that in itself is a very powerful way of capturing how difficult it is for international students just to navigate
Yeah.
being in a different context, a different society, not only speaking a different language, but living an entirely different life culture, and that it takes a lot, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is a site of struggle. I'm
Yeah.
going back to all these ideas.
Yeah, Bordeaux is all the way.
All over the place.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel that, you know, did you ever feel that you were not going to be able to complete this project?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I realized that as much I put in a lot of effort to my work, because I know that I only have 3 years. The very least that I could extend is 3.5. Any more than that, then the funding will not, support you anymore. I treat I think me and my colleagues, I realized that we treat our PhD as a job, as a work. So we're always at 9 to 5. We do that a lot because we know that time is our biggest enemy. And then along the way, you have destruction. You wanna take a break. There are some days that you don't feel like working. The weather in Manchester is not helping. I think you all know what is happening in Manchester. I think the turning point in my life, um, not just my work, and the point that I question whether I'm able to finish or not. I think we talk a lot about personal challenge just now. Mine is, so I 2 weeks before I due to submit my final draft, and 2 months before I was due to come back home, my mom has sadly passed away. She had an accident in Malaysia, and that was the turning point. I it happened so fast because I remember receiving the phone call from my father, and I couldn't process reality at the time. I sat down for like 10 minutes and then starting to process what happened. I didn't go back. Yeah. So it was really difficult. It took me, I think, around. I was crying for a month, and one thing that I learned from the experience is that I just need to go out and see people. It's not good to stay on your own, because then you start to be in that cycle of grief, And then it was when I started seeing people again that they started to reassure me. I started making more calls home. So it helped a lot, because you want to be with your family,
Yes.
but so that was one point that I thought that I will never be able to finish this PhD within the stipulated time that I had. Uh, but I'm glad that I overcome that. So I think one takeaway from here is, do not underestimate or undermine the value of friendship and the value of everybody around me. Because I remember you were there for me. You were, in the moment that you heard the news, You sent me an email. A lot of my colleagues reach out to me if they want any help. And then I think, yeah, and I applied for an extension from that because my supervisors and also my career academic advisor was like, no, you need to have it for your mental health
Yes.
and everything. And I was like, at some point I was denying it. I was like, no, I'm mentally I'm well. I don't have any issue with my mental health. It's just grief. But they were like, well, you think that you're okay, but who knows? But you never know, isn't it? So I was like, okay, I listened to them, and I'm so glad that I did. And I thought that it's very good for my well-being. So I wouldn't use the word mental health here because I don't want to undermine what mental health, because I don't struggle with mental health, but my well-being is important, as they said. And I'm so glad that I listened to them.
Yes.
And I think I was so obsessed with trying to finish that I've started to that become my end goal. So I sat down, reflect, and then I started to pick up. So another point over here is it's important to reflect, isn't it?
Yes, I think I remember when I heard the news from another colleague, and those are the time, the moments that you experience and you really connect.
Yeah,
Especially if you've also
yeah,
gone through a similar experience,
yeah,
you can put yourself in
yeah,
thinking, my colleague's
yeah,
having, a
yeah,
really bad time.
yeah.
So how can I,
Oh.
you want to give some space and time.
Exactly.
Everybody needs
Yeah,
that, but
yeah.
also you don't want to leave them,
True.
by
Yeah,
themselves, because
yeah,
you don't know, you never know how people can react.
exactly.
So that relevance of having that
Yeah,
community,
yeah.
having those people around you, and you make it, it's very, very important point, because life is full of surprises. So
Surprises,
whenever you
exactly.
don't know what's going to happen,
Yeah.
having that someone, and sometimes it's just one person, sometimes it's just a message, sometimes it's just a phone call, but you need to have that support. It is
Yeah,
important.
true,
Yeah.
true. In a sense, I'm very lucky, and yeah, I'm lucky in that sense, actually. So happy that I'm able to finish the journey, not just finish it, but finishing it with everyone around me. It's just an amazing feeling. Manchester is the place where the community, I would say, is just amazing.
Yeah.
The support, everything is just it works well for me at the end. It was great.
Exactly.
So this is my challenge, and then this is my personal story. And then I love listening to others as well. And thank you for this. I thought this is a perfect opportunity to just reflect and then
Yes.
tell one side of the stories. And, yeah.
The human side of
Yeah.
the researchers. We're all humans, and at the end of the
Yeah.
day, we need each other to be able to thrive and survive. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening to us, and we'll see you next time.